My boyfriend, 29 years old, and I, 27 years old, have dated twice, 2 years recently and 2 years from 2016 to 2018, when we broke up because he cheated on me. We are invited to his college friends, whom he's not close to but has kept in touch loosely in group chats over the years, wedding this summer. His first love and only love apart from me will be present. The last time he met her at another wedding, him and I were on and off. A day after meeting her, he called me and told me he wanted to marry her. And then a day after, told me he made a mistake and wants me. He has hung up on Skype calls with me when she suddenly Skype calls. He has kept in touch with her while we were on and off. So generally, I'm not very secure when it comes to her. The issue, he told me that he will not go to the wedding if I am not going with him. He even offered to pay for the trip, as I cannot afford it right now, so I could go. I was more willing to go previously, but recently my insecurities increased due to his general behavior. Behavior such as an increasing lack of emotional understanding of me, invalidating me, and lack of credibility. He keeps going back on his word with regards to other girls. To add, we are in a long-distance relationship, and I was more willing to go to the wedding earlier because I was wishfully hoping that we would be as healthy and secure as possible by this summer. However, he just visited me in my country, and during the whole trip, he kept invalidating my feelings and going back on his word repeatedly with regards to other things. This is what affected my insecurity with this relationship in general. Due to this, I told him, I'm not comfortable going with the state of our disconnection right now. We know that we need to work on a lot if we want to continue dating. So, it's obviously not ideal to go to a wedding with this ex. Today, he randomly messaged me telling me, I am planning the trip. Wish you could come. Not only is he going back on his word, but he didn't even provide any love or reassurance before informing me that he's going. When there was a similar situation where I was invited to a public exhibition where my ex, we didn't even date, but my boyfriend isn't comfortable with him, was present, I asked him before going, not because I need permission, but because I value my partner's feelings and security in us more than going. I also made sure to thoroughly and fully reassure him that I love him and it's me and him till the end before making a decision to go or not. I wouldn't have gone if he didn't want me to. He told me he has no issues with it and go ahead, so I did. Am I wrong for expecting similar treatment from him? After months of saying, I'm not going if you're not, during a time when I was more secure, now that I'm more insecure, he is going for some reason, and that too without any communication or reassurance. Just a cold and abrupt message saying, I'm planning the trip. Wish you could come. Is it me, or is this super inconsiderate and shows a lack of care and love for me? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Look, I'll preface this by saying that you should have broken up a long time ago, but you did yourself no favors here. He made it as easy as possible for you to come to this wedding to secure your valid insecurities. He wants to pay for you, but you still don't want to go. He has since correctly identified that going to all of his college friends' weddings is more important than your relationship and satisfying your insecurities. You should now correctly identify that you are better off without him. Comment 2. This is in no way a healthy relationship, and it feels as if you're the one keeping it together. Underpinning everything in this post is the lack of trust you have with him, and it's very much warranted. There are daily challenges and wonderful experiences you're missing out on, and he's treating your relationship as an afterthought. You need to leave this and any long-distance relationship behind and find someone you can truly trust and grow together with. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments from the last post. So, here's what's been happening since then. After he sent that message about planning the trip, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I didn't respond right away because I needed time to process it. The next day, I decided to call him to talk about it. When we finally got on the phone, I asked him why he was going back on his word. He said he didn't want to miss the wedding and thought it would be a good chance to catch up with old friends. I told him how hurtful it was that he didn't even consider my feelings or try to reassure me before making his decision. He apologized, but it felt half-hearted, like he was just saying it to end the argument. A few days later, I noticed he was being distant. Our conversations were shorter and he seemed distracted. I asked him if everything was okay, and he said he was just busy with work. but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I started to wonder if he was already talking to his ex or planning to meet up with her at the wedding. My insecurities were eating me alive, and I didn't know what to do. Then, out of the blue, he sent me a message saying he wanted to talk about something important. My heart sank. When we got on the call, he told me he had been thinking a lot about our relationship and wasn't sure if we were right for each other anymore. He said he felt like we were constantly fighting and that he didn't know if he could keep up with the long-distance thing. I was devastated. I asked him if this had anything to do with his ex, and he got defensive, saying it had nothing to do with her and that he just needed some space to figure things out. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to make sense of everything. I talked to my friends and family, and they all had different opinions. Some said I should give him the space he needed, while others thought he was just using this as an excuse to get back with his ex. I didn't know what to believe. A week later, he called me again and said he wanted to meet up in person to talk things through. He booked a flight to come see me, and I agreed to meet him. When he arrived, we sat down and had a long, emotional conversation. He admitted that he had been talking to his ex, and that seeing her at the wedding had brought up a lot of old feelings. He said he was confused and didn't know what he wanted anymore. I was heartbroken. I asked him why he didn't tell me this sooner, and he said he didn't want to hurt me. I told him that keeping it from me was even more hurtful. We talked for hours, going over everything that had happened in our relationship. I told him how much his actions had hurt me and how insecure I felt because of his behavior. He apologized and said he didn't realize how much he was hurting me. We decided to take a break from each other to figure things out. He went back to his country, and I tried to focus on myself. During this time, I thought a lot about our relationship and what I wanted. I realized that I couldn't keep living in constant fear and insecurity. I needed someone who would make me feel loved and valued, and not someone who made me question everything. A few days later, he called me and said he had made a decision. He told me he wanted to be with me and was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. He said he would cut off all contact with his ex and focus on rebuilding our relationship. I was torn. On one hand, I still loved him and wanted to believe that we could make it work. On the other hand, I didn't know if I could trust him again. I told him I needed time to think about it. Over the next few days, I weighed my options and talked to my friends and family. They all had different opinions, but ultimately, I knew I had to make the decision for myself. I thought about all the times he had hurt me and how insecure I felt because of his actions. I also thought about the good times we had shared and how much I still loved him. In the end, I decided to give him one last chance. I told him that if he truly wanted to be with me, he needed to prove it by being consistent and showing me that he was committed to our relationship. He agreed and promised to do whatever it took to make things right. As we started to rebuild our relationship, I couldn't help but think about the past and how we got to this point. I remembered the first time we met and how we instantly connected. I thought about all the good times we had shared and how much we had grown together. But I also couldn't forget the times he had hurt me and made me feel insecure. One memory that stood out was when we first got back together after he cheated on me. I was hesitant to trust him again, but he promised me that he had changed and would never hurt me again. I wanted to believe him, so I gave him another chance. For a while, things were good, but then he started to slip back into old habits. I realized that I had been ignoring the red flags because I wanted so badly for things to work out. Now, as we try to move forward, I know that I need to be more aware of those red flags and not ignore them. I need to trust my instincts and not let my love for him cloud my judgment. I also need to make sure that he is truly committed to making things right and not just saying what I want to hear. So, that's where we are now. We're trying to rebuild our relationship and see if we can make it work. It's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to give it one last shot. Thanks for reading. Aita for confronting my friend about spreading rumors and then distancing myself from our group. I had a crush on one of my current friends back in early high school. I asked her out a few times and I was eventually politely ignored, rejected. We moved past it and, despite this, became really good friends. We kept up over the years through college, later holding our own long-term relationships, and even supported each other when said relationships ended. I would say we've been comfortably platonic for almost a decade now. We both invite each other to things and initiate convos of about equal measure. So this isn't one-sided. Old feelings have never really come up again. Cut to the last few years. I go to grad school in a different city, and she still lives in my hometown. So whenever our paths cross, I'll typically find time to swing by. She hosts a ton of people at her place on a regular basis, so it's more like I'm dropping in on group-setting party nights. We also have separate friend groups that have gradually intermingled over the last few years. So when I pull through, I'm also seeing them. Of note, in recent years, our groups have had a lot of infighting, usually involving a lot of gossip, /rumors, /guys and girls trying to sleep with each other, and predictably going poorly. It's been a bit of a running joke, and I've done a solid job staying out of any drama. Anyway, recently one of our mutual friends informed me that she has told people, not recently, but at least in the last year, that I still have a crush on her or believes that I do. We've never really talked about this outside of the rare jest. So the fact she's talked about it in group settings with my own friends, in a gossipy and what I assume negative way, according to how my friend alluded, really bothers me. It makes me think that she believes I'm only coming over for reasons that I can assume are very nice guy-esque. I want to say she values me as a friend, and I'm not just imagining that. But if she tells other people about this so openly, it puts me in an uncomfortable spot. Now, full disclosure, she was my high school crush. So for me to say that feelings have never come back up at any point over the years would be a lie. However, I value her first and foremost as a friend, and would never compromise it. I've never acted on said feelings, and I have no interest in her as a romantic partner for a litany of personal reasons. But the fact that this is how she sees me has really made me re-examine our friendship over the years. If she sees me this way, and always has, I'd feel awkward continuing to come to group events or even talk to her. She has a boyfriend who is great, and I've been single for a while. So I can only imagine how that looks when I come over, or how weird it would be for them. It's such a weird non-issue because apparently this was brought up a while ago, and I've never noticed any difference in how I was treated. But doing nothing at all after hearing this feels wrong. I feel like addressing this in any manner puts me at risk of losing the friendship, but sitting on it doesn't feel right either. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'd bring it up with your friend. The friendship is already at risk because you cannot unknow this thing she did. Talking about it would be an attempt to repair the damage that has been done, not something that risks the friendship further. If you say nothing, things will just be weird and awkward. Comment 2. I have side-eye for the friend. I think they're a shit stirrer. You only have that person's word that she said anything at all, or that if she did, she meant it negatively, rather than an offhand, "Oh yeah, he used to have a crush on me when we were kids." Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all your comments on my last post. So, after hearing that my friend had been talking about me still having a crush on her, I decided to confront the situation head on. I didn't want to let this fester and potentially ruin our friendship. I called her up and asked if we could meet for coffee. She agreed, and we met at our usual spot. When we sat down, I didn't waste any time. I told her what I had heard and how it made me feel. She looked genuinely surprised and a bit uncomfortable. She admitted that she had mentioned it to a few people, but insisted it was just in passing and not meant to be taken seriously. She apologized if it made me feel awkward or uncomfortable. I could tell she was being sincere, but it still stung a bit. We talked for a while, and I explained that while I did have feelings for her back in high school, those feelings had long since faded. I told her that I valued our friendship above all else, and would never want to jeopardize it. She seemed to understand and reassured me that she valued our friendship too. We left the conversation on good terms, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things were different now. A few days later, I went to one of her group gatherings. It was the first time I'd seen her since our coffee chat, and I was a bit nervous. When I arrived, everything seemed normal at first. We chatted, laughed, and caught up with mutual friends. But as the night went on, I started to notice subtle changes in how people interacted with me. It was like they were tiptoeing around me, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. Later that evening, I overheard a conversation between two of our mutual friends. They were talking about how they thought it was cute that I still had a crush on her after all these years. I felt my face flush with embarrassment. It was clear that the gossip had spread further than I had anticipated. I decided to leave early, making up an excuse about an early morning meeting. The next day, I got a call from another mutual friend. She told me that people were starting to question my intentions, and that some even thought I was trying to sabotage my friend's relationship with her boyfriend. I was shocked and hurt. I had never done anything to suggest that, and it felt like my character was being unfairly judged. I decided to take a step back from the group for a while. I needed some space to process everything and figure out what to do next. During this time, I started to reflect on my past relationships and friendships. I realized that I had a pattern of getting close to people and then pulling away when things got complicated. It was like I was afraid of getting hurt, so I would distance myself before anyone else could. One memory that stood out was from college. I had a close friend who I developed feelings for, but I never told her. Instead, I slowly started to distance myself until we eventually lost touch. I regretted it for years, and now it felt like history was repeating itself. A week later, I got a message from my friend's boyfriend. He wanted to meet up and talk. I was hesitant, but agreed. When we met, he was surprisingly understanding. He told me that he didn't believe the rumors and that he trusted his girlfriend. However, he also mentioned that the constant gossip was putting a strain on their relationship. He asked if I could help put an end to it by addressing the group directly. I agreed, even though the thought of confronting everyone made me anxious. We arranged a group meeting and I prepared myself for what felt like an intervention. When the day came, I stood in front of everyone and laid it all out. I explained my feelings, my intentions, and how the rumors were affecting not just me, but also my friend's relationship. Most of the group seemed to understand, but there were a few who still seemed skeptical. I couldn't change everyone's mind, but I hoped that by being honest, I could at least put some of the rumors to rest. After the meeting, my friend thanked me for speaking up, and her boyfriend seemed relieved. Despite this, things didn't go back to normal. The dynamic of the group had shifted, and I felt like an outsider. I started to distance myself even more, focusing on my studies and other friendships. It was hard, but I knew it was the right thing to do. In the end, I realized that sometimes, no matter how much you value a friendship, external factors can change everything. I still care about my friend, but I think it's best for both of us if I take a step back for now. Maybe in time, things will go back to the way they were. But for now, I need to focus on myself and my own well-being. Thanks for reading. Aita for refusing to plan dates for my wife who drains our bank account and then complains. So long story short, my wife of 5 years complains all the time that I don't plan dates or outings for the two of us, and especially for special occasions, marriage anniversary. Before special occasions, she lets me know in advance and asks me if I prepared something or bought her something. I tell her no, and then she gets upset. But in the end, I'm the one who always buys gifts for special occasions like her birthday, Christmas, Valentine's Day, etc. Meanwhile, in the 5 years I've known her, she only gifted me something once for our first Christmas together, and the rest she defaulted to say, "I feel bad for not getting you anything, sorry." And mind you, I don't care that she hasn't bought me stuff. It just irks me that she complains that I don't do anything for her or plan anything for her. My reason? She can't decide where to eat on a weekly, if not daily basis. She will shut down every suggestion I give. If I tell her I decided on such and such a place, she will say no. She doesn't feel like eating that. Meanwhile, wherever she decides to eat, I'm okay with it. I'm somewhat of a picky eater, but I will always find at least one thing on the menu to eat, and I never complain about it. I only complain about a place if it's expensive, and it doesn't make sense for me to go if I won't eat a lot. An expensive buffet, for example. Also, our money situation is not good. Since I've met her, my bank account has steadily been drained, and we're living paycheck to paycheck because of her insatiable cravings for eating out and her unstoppable impulsive behavior. So even if I were a planner like she would like me to be, we don't have the money to go anywhere. Hotels are expensive. Last time we went on a retreat, it cost us around $600 because she wanted a trailer cabin in the woods, money that we really couldn't afford to splurge. What did we do there? that we couldn't have done at home and saved the money. I couldn't tell you because she didn't even go out on a trail walk with me and the dog. The forest was full of leafless trees, so there was no nice view either. But I went along with it because she would be pleased if we went. And that's how our money situation is becoming worse and worse. And she still has the need to complain that I don't plan anything. I feel like telling her, maybe I should plan everything, since her spending habit is based on impulses of the moment. Of course, this is only a snippet of the relationship and the complexity of humans and their lives. Probably I'm also oblivious to my own shortcomings. How do I stop this endless cycle of her wanting me to plan things when one? We don't have money to go places, and two, she's a very indecisive person. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Gifts and time together are not interchangeable. I think in general it's reasonable for her to want you to plan some dates and outings, even though you give gifts. But that only works if she will accept you planning cheap or free outings, and will accept your choices. Sounds like cheap or free dates that don't revolve around food would be a good idea for you too. Separately from that issue, if you would like to be given inexpensive gifts, it's completely fine for you to ask for that. But if you truly don't care, except for her to acknowledge your effort in gift giving, then I'd drop that from this conversation and just focus on, I would like to plan dates for us, but you shoot down all my ideas and request dates that we can't afford. Comment 2. Is she aware of the money issue, or does she prefer to not want to know and pretend that you can easily afford it? She sounds quite immature in my opinion. Does she work? I would create a budget and have a very small budget for weekly fun money. Write it out so she can see the expenses versus income. If she already knows all of this, your goals don't align. You can suggest couples therapy or a divorce. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So this past week has been a real mess. It all started when my wife came home from work last Monday and mentioned that her friend was planning a weekend getaway to a nearby resort. She was really excited about it and asked if we could join them. I immediately felt a knot in my stomach because I knew we couldn't afford it. I tried to gently remind her about our financial situation, but she brushed it off, saying we could use a credit card and pay it off later. I knew this was a bad idea, but I didn't want to argue, so I said I'd think about it. The next day, she brought it up again, and I could see how much she wanted to go. I felt trapped. If I said no, she'd be upset and accuse me of never wanting to do anything fun. If I said yes, we'd be digging ourselves deeper into debt. I decided to compromise and suggested we could do something cheaper, like a day trip to a nearby town. She wasn't thrilled but agreed to think about it. By Wednesday, she was back to pushing for the resort. She even showed me pictures of the place and talked about how much fun it would be to relax by the pool and enjoy the amenities. I felt like I was being backed into a corner. I tried to explain again that we couldn't afford it, but she got really upset and accused me of not caring about her happiness. It turned into a huge argument, and she ended up storming out of the house. The next day, she was still giving me the cold shoulder. I felt terrible and decided to try and make it up to her. I planned a nice dinner at home and even bought some flowers. When she came home, I apologized and told her I'd try to figure out a way for us to go to the resort. She seemed to soften a bit, but I could tell she was still upset. On Friday, I called the resort to see if they had any last-minute deals or discounts. They didn't, and the price was even higher than I expected. I felt like I was running out of options. I decided to talk to my wife again and be completely honest about our financial situation. I showed her our bank statements and explained how much debt we were already in. She seemed to understand, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Saturday morning, she woke up and told me she had decided to go to the resort with her friend, even if I couldn't come. I was shocked and hurt. I couldn't believe she would go without me, knowing how much it would strain our finances. I tried to talk her out of it, but she was determined. She packed her bags and left that afternoon. I spent the rest of the weekend feeling angry and betrayed. I couldn't believe she would put her desires above our financial stability. I tried to distract myself by doing chores around the house, but I couldn't shake the feeling of resentment. I kept thinking about all the times I had compromised and gone along with her plans even when I didn't want to. When she came back on Sunday evening, she seemed happy and relaxed. She told me about all the fun she had and how much she needed the break. I couldn't bring myself to be happy for her. I felt like she had completely disregarded my feelings and our financial situation. We ended up having another argument, and she accused me of being unsupportive and controlling. The fallout from this has been rough. We're barely speaking to each other, and the tension in the house is unbearable. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid another argument. I've been thinking a lot about our relationship and whether we can keep going like this. I love her, but I don't know if I can keep sacrificing my own needs and our financial stability for her happiness. I've also been reflecting on our past and trying to understand how we got here. When we first started dating, she was always so spontaneous and fun-loving. I loved that about her, but I didn't realize how much it would impact our finances. I've always been more practical and cautious, and I thought we balanced each other out. But now it feels like we're constantly at odds. I remember one time, early in our relationship, when we went on a road trip. We didn't have a plan, just a map and a sense of adventure. It was one of the best times we had together. But now, it feels like that spontaneity has turned into recklessness. I miss the days when we could just enjoy each other's company without worrying about money or responsibilities. I've also been thinking about my own role in this. I know I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes too. I've been so focused on trying to keep us financially stable that I've neglected her emotional needs. I've been trying to find a balance, but it feels like an impossible task. I don't know what the future holds for us. I want to make things work, but I don't know if we can keep going like this. I feel like we're stuck in a cycle of arguments and resentment, and I don't know how to break free. I guess only time will tell. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.